What's happening, everybody? It is Trey here. I'm joined again by my dad Sean, and today on Reactions to the Classics we're going to be taking a look at the Rolling Stones classic album Sticky Fingers. We have reviews up for Beggar's Banquet and Let It Bleed, so just next up on the list here. Excited about it, and if this is your first time joining us at the channel, guys, we appreciate it. Here at Reactions to the Classics, we take a look back at some of the most classic records of all time and do detailed track-by-track reviews of them, and just like today, it is usually the first time we've heard the record, so if that sounds like something interesting to you, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. If you'd like to link up with us more, we have our Facebook group, a link down below, as well as our Patreon if you'd like to support us and get some perks yourself as well. And all that to say, let's get into some quick facts.
This thing was released in April of 1971. It is the 9th album in the UK for the Stones. This thing was #1 there for 5 weeks. It's the 11th album in the US for the Stones, where it spent 4 weeks at #1. It's also number 64 on the Rolling Stone top 500 albums of all time. And it's also the first album to use the most famous logo in rock music, the tongue and lips of the Stones. It's also the band's first release on their Rolling Stones records. Before that, since 1963, they've been with Decca Records in the UK, which we'll get into that in a minute. That didn't turn out too well for them. And London Records in the US. It's also the first album where Mick Taylor's on there completely, and the first album where founder Brian Jones is not on there at all because he had passed.
And this also marks a return to form, to the more rock and roll roots that they had in their earlier days, that they took a little deviation from for their Satanic Majesty's Request, some Beggar's Banquet. You have the classic lineup of Mick Jagger, Mick Taylor, Keith Richards, Bill Wyman, and Charlie Watts.
They're now free of their record deals, so now they can do their own thing, cover art and all, which they're very happy about. Unfortunately, they got rid of their manager, Alan Klein, and when they did that, they figured out that they had signed over the rights to all of their songs from the 1960s to him. Sneaky, sneaky. The music business is still that way. It's so predatory. These guys don't know what they're signing when they first start out. So he still has the record rights to everything from the 60s. He passed in 2009, and the Stones were, let's say, really upset with him to the time of his death. And because of that, 2 of these songs were actually written in the 60s, and that would be Wild Horses and Brown Sugar. So he still holds co-rights with those things. Now we're up to the lead single, Brown Sugar. This thing went to #1 in the US, #2 in the UK. It's number 495 on the Rolling Stones top 500 songs of all time. It was written by Jagger for his then secret girlfriend at the time, Marsha Hunt.
And he said that there were some dual topics here of, girls and drugs, and also, I mean, if you take it face value, it really is about interracial sex.
That's exactly what it is. Read the lyrics.
Read the lyrics, and he talks about how back in the day the slave owners would, just be abusive towards the slaves, and how that's different from his day, whenever he would just be like, oh, I just want an exotic woman, but how that evolved over time. Fantastic way to start off the record, just the rock and roll sound that you expect from the Stones, and there wasn't, surprisingly, a ton of songs on here that were just straight up rock and roll like this, but I thought it was smart for them to kind of just pique people's interest with the lead track. And that takes us to Sway. This was released as the B-side to Wild Horses in the US in June of '71. For me, this was my favorite track on the entire record.
Well, there you go, stealing that from me again. Yes, it was my favorite track as well. Rumor has it Pete Townsend is doing backing vocals on this, but it's not credited. Mick Taylor he said later on he felt like he deserved a writing credit on this, but it was Richards Jagger, like it always was, and he believed he should have got some on a couple other songs that we'll get to in a little bit. It's one of the main reasons why he left. And yeah, this is kind of the ultimate sex, drugs, and rock and roll song. And man, it is just, I was waking up in the mornings with this song in my head, and that lets you know it is a fantastic song. One of my favorite Stone songs we've come across.
No, I'd back that up, and I think the lyrics do a good job of depicting, how the sex, drug, rock and roll lifestyle isn't all it's cracked up to be, and so I thought that was a unique take that the Stones put forth here, and definitely a highlight on this record.
Next up, we're probably the most famous song off here, Wild Horses, number 334 on the Rolling Stones top 500 songs of all time. The first couple verses, Keith Richards actually wrote to his son as a lullaby almost, and then it turns into the usual song. There's a few songs on here like this of just not wanting to leave home. They were already starting to grow weary of the road lifestyle because they were always on it. The song kind of took a different complexion under Mick's pen. Marianne Faithfull revealed the wild horses couldn't drag me away were the first words she uttered to Mick in the hospital when she came out of a 6-day coma in the summer of '69. But Mick said that by the time he wrote this song, he was long past her, so it didn't have anything to do with her, but everything you read says it did, but he himself says it didn't. This song is my second favorite song on here, or in the running. I really, really like this album sneak preview.
The subject matter was fantastic. I like the country twang to Jagger's voice here. He's always very diverse in his vocal style, and that was definitely on display here. I never heard this track, but again, another one of my favorite Stones songs that I've heard thus far.
Next up is Can't You Hear Me Knocking, which this song is over 7 minutes long, Trey, but the first 2 minutes and 43 seconds have vocals. The rest of it does not. And Richards talked about this. He said when they were done recording, they just kept on jamming. They thought they'd already finished. They thought they'd already pressed stop. But he said, we got 2 songs here.
Yeah, the tape was still rolling.
The tape was still rolling, man, so you got a nice little jam that goes on for over 4 minutes.
The song portion itself with the lyrics deals with a guy at somebody's door, can't you hear me knocking? Either his girlfriend, his lover, or a drug dealer. There's a great Billy Key saxophone solo here. They brought in the brass instruments a couple of different times on this record, and here it really stood out. You have Mick Taylor afterwards doing a great outro guitar work. A good, more up-tempo song after Wild Horses. Differed up the styles a little bit, and I thought it was a solid track on side 1. Close side 1 off with You Gotta Move. This was actually written by Fred McDowell. It is an African-American spiritual song. Essentially, it's been reinterpreted a bunch of different times, talking about no matter one situation is in life, they got to move when the Lord calls them, and it has some definite Christian overtone. Pretty easily my least favorite track. Nothing hideous about it. It just something with Jagger's vocals and just the stripped back instrumentation. It just didn't really mesh well for me.
Well, Mick's, we've run into on the previous 2 albums. Sometimes he gets in a different voice.
Yeah.
I don't know any way to put it to sing. This one, he said he was going for a Southern black dialect, and you can hear it in there. Taylor has a nice little electric slide guitar in there. For me, also, is my least favorite on here. I still liked it, but compared to the other songs, it definitely pales. We're going to start off with the B-side with Bitch. This thing was actually conceived during the recording sessions for Sticky Fingers. They were working on it. Keith Richards was late. He comes in, he gets himself a bowl of cereal. He sits in the middle of the recording studio, he's eating his cereal, says, hey, hand me that guitar. And then he just comes off with this guitar riff that's kind of known throughout this whole song.
Famous, yeah.
The song also has a bunch of brass instrumentation, which you were mentioned previously on a couple songs. I like this song. It wasn't my favorite. It was probably in the middle of the road. I have 3 really big favorites, and it's probably right there under it.
I thought it was a good way, again, to start off the B-side, start off with a rocker. I think that's usually the smart play. Jagger's lyrics here were fantastic. I thought, using Antithesis, he kind of just shows the 2 dichotomies here, the contrast of almost like his lover is like a drug to him.
Yes.
That's what I interpreted it as. All in all, as you said, Sean, I thought it was a good track. Track 7 takes the Stones back to their blues roots with I Got the Blues. Here, Jagger is talking about a woman who he once loved and who has now abandoned him, and this is definitely musically in the blues style.
There's a nice organ with Billy Preston, who worked with the Beatles as well, so Billy was really hanging in high company here. For me, this is my favorite song of side B. It's right there in the running with Wild Horses for my second favorite song on this album. Just an excellent job. I like the throwback to the blues stuff from their last 2 albums. I actually like this better than any of their blues offerings on the previous 2 albums. Now we're up to Sister Morphine, which was written by Jagger, Richards, and his girlfriend at the time it was written, not at the time the album was released, Marianne Faithfull. This is the darkest of all the drug songs on this album. And this is a drug album. There's all kinds of things that you can at least read.
Read between the lines.
Read between the lines. And for me, it was also in that middle of the road. I like it. It's just not a real high standout for me.
Well, I'm going to be opposite with you. This was my, probably third favorite song. You can really hear like the desperation in Jagger's voice here, talking about he's in the hospital and he's just waiting for his next hit. Where's Sister Morphine at?
Even though the morphine landed him in the hospital,
he OD'd.
It just shows you just can't get away from it.
And he calls it Sister Morphine, almost thinking how close he is to this drug and how he needs it in his life. The more stripped back sentiment to it was fantastic. The guitar work here, though not not heavy, was complementing the lyrics in a great way. So for me, absolute standout track. And that'll transition us into another darker song.
Yes, for sure.
Dead Flowers, written by Jagger and Richards, of course. And this describes a man who's kind of down on his luck and his broken relationship with a woman who everything seems to go right for her. She's doing much better in life than this poor dude is.
There's dead flowers, and she'll send him dead flowers. He'll send her roses, which is either heroin related with some of the slang in here, or obviously he loves her, she doesn't love him. She sends dead flowers, he sends roses. I like this song. I don't think it's quite as good as the previous track, Sister Morphine.
No, I'd agree with that.
But I think it fits nicely in the flow of the final three songs.
We had Drugs, and we have here Broken Down Relationship.
Yeah, Lost Love for him.
Yeah, and then our next track is also more in the sad, melancholy type of wheelhouse. So for that, I think it was a solid track, even if it wouldn't be, top tier for me.
And now we're up to the final track, Moonlight Mile, which actually was a product of an all-night jam session between Jagger and Taylor. Keith Richards wasn't there, but Taylor took one of Richards' guitar riffs that he was trying to work into a song, and he reworked it for this thing. And in this, Jagger actually plays the acoustic.
This has been interpreted by some as, a Moonlight Mile of cocaine abuse, but Jagger said that that's not what he was aiming for. He stated that the feeling he had at that moment was how difficult it was to be touring and how he wasn't looking forward to going out and doing it again. This has some of the best lyrics, I think, in the entire record. This is my second favorite track on this record. I think it was the perfect way to end an album that really dealt on some serious themes, and the way that Jagger talks about how he's here and there's strangers sending all these things to his mind, but it doesn't matter because he's just wanting to be lying by his lover's side, but Moonlight Mile away. So
yeah.
All in all, I think it was a great way, and it complemented well with the more stripped back instrumentation again.
Yeah, and I think this song, more than any of the others, grew on me over time to being one of my favorites, which is ironically enough what we're up to now. My three favorites I've already mentioned. Sway, maybe, I don't know if it's my favorite Stone songs we've heard so far because there's so many good ones, but on this album, Sway's the top. Wild Horses and I Got the Blues are right there as 2A and 2B. And I think it's going to be a mark, because you already kind of gave away a little bit of yours, of how good this album is, that we have different favorites.
Yeah, I put those three along with, Moonlight Mile and then Sister Morphine. I think that's a great point, Sean, where you listed off.
I mean, that's 5 of the 10 songs.
Yeah, half the album.
And we didn't even mention Brown Sugar, which is iconic.
No, so that'll, I guess, take us to our overall rating of the record. Sean, what do you got on this?
Well, it's been a little bit in our run here of recent reviews where I'm sad to get away from a record. They almost become your friend because you listen to them so much. You're in the middle of the research of them. This is one of the first one, like I said, in a while that I have been sad to get away from. I'm going to give this thing a 9.0.
I'm going to be right there with you. This is going to be a 9 for me as well. I like this better than Let It Bleed.
Me as well.
And I put it... Over time, I've really grown to like Beggar's Banquet, but I think as I spend even more time with Sticky Fingers, I'm going to like it more than that.
Yeah, it's my favorite of the three so far, and I like the other two a lot, but this one is another step up, which I can't wait for Exile on Main Street, which will be up next.
Yeah, I'm really stoked for that one, and we'd love to know your thoughts on Sticky Fingers. What is your favorite track? Let us know below, and Sean, thanks for the research.
That was a pleasure.
Always fun to hear the backstory, and as I mentioned earlier, y'all be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. We upload twice a week in a variety of genres, and I'm sure there will be something for everybody. And until next time, y'all, happy listening. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.